Welcome into DRF Daily, DRF Sportsbooks betting live stream coming at you every day that there is football. We did miss the last day, but we hit 3-1 on our bets for Saturday's action. And unfortunately, the day we missed on our Sunday, we hit all four of our best bets. But I won't chalk that up as a win for DRF Daily, just a personal win. But we're trying to take that heater into Monday Night Football. We're 7-1 over our last 8 bets. We're feeling good. We're going to break down tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Browns and the Bengals, a Halloween clash between orange teams. What better than that? It's so fitting. And then we'll break down 3 props that we're targeting, 2 player props, and 1 game total prop that I feel really, really confident about. And before we get up into that, remember, as always, folks, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere there's social media. You can find us as well at DRF Sportsbook. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of the above. We want to stay engaged with you with the conversation happening on social media. So before we just right there at now, let's break down today's game action between the Bengals and the Browns. Bengals come into this one red hot, winning 4 of their last 5. Not only that, the Bengals are 5-1 against the spread this season. Despite starting the year 0-2, they still managed to cover against the Cowboys in week 2, and they are looking fantastic against the spread. Browns, on the other hand, have lost 4 straight games, and they are 1-3 against the spread here coming into tonight's Monday Night Football game. Browns are at home, but that doesn't seem to matter as the Bengals are 3-1 against the spread against Cleveland, whether it's at home, whether it's in Cincinnati, wherever the game is. The Bengals tend to cover these spreads dating back to the start of the 2020 season. With that being said, though, the Bengals typically were bad and the Browns were a little bit more highly favored in the eyes of Vegas, in the eyes of the public. So the Browns tended to be favored and the Bengals tended to keep it close with these large spreads. Browns were favored in all of them. Bengals covered 3 of the 4. Browns did win, though, all 4 of those games. So it's something to keep in mind as the Bengals, for the first time since at least the start of 2020, the Bengals are favored in this one. They're favored by 3 points, and that tends to be what these games are decided by. When the Browns win, they're winning by like 4, 5, 6 points, 1 possession, close games. But that might be different this year as the Browns are looking a little shaky over these last few games. They started the year pretty solid, and people were surprised by the play of Jacoby Brissett. But overall, they've kind of regressed just a little bit. Surprisingly, though, they're number 1 in pass block win rate. This offensive line can pass block their butts off. Will it be enough, though, to carve up this Bengals secondary? I'm not sure. And there's a lot of things going against the Browns in this game in terms of historical trends and things that get high ratings with DRF data. If you look here with DRF data, Kevin Stefanski is 0-10 against the spread after a road loss. They're coming off of a road loss and they tend to lose by just zero point 0.7 points. So it's close games. But regardless, Kevin Stefanski is 0-10 against the spread coming after a road loss. Cleveland, since the start of last season, is 0-8 against the spread after playing their last game on the road. And they tend to get blown out in those games, losing by more than a touchdown. Not looking good for Cleveland. And pair that all together, the fact Cincinnati is 10-0 against the spread against teams with a completion percentage of 61% or better. If we go over to team statistics, scroll on down to Cleveland, their completion percentage is a whopping 62.7%. So they're playing well when it comes to completing the football and all of that. And that doesn't bode well for the Browns as Cincinnati is 10-0 against the spread in road games against teams that complete 61% or more of their passes. That's why I'm all over Cincinnati in this game, folks. Cincinnati, our power line likes them at -6. Estimate number 1 likes Cincinnati 22-22. Estimate number 2 actually likes Cleveland to win, but our power line's all over the Bengals at -6. And I think the Bengals are a much better team. Joe Burrow is coming into his own, and Joe Burrow is looking every part of a fantastic quarterback. And that leads us into our first player prop tonight. Joe Burrow over under 263 and a 63 and a half pass yards. I'm hammering the over on this one. He's gone over that number in 5 of 7 games this season. He's coming off of a 400 plus yard game. He's gone over 263 and a half pass yards in back to back games. He averages 40 attempts, a whopping, technically it's 38, so nearly 40 attempts per game. And he averages 7.2 yards per completion. And he's going up against a Browns secondary that is atrocious. They allow 6.4 yards per completion and allow the seventh most yards per attempt in the entire NFL, first in the AFC North. So Joe Burrow has his opportunity to completely tear up this team. And I think it's going to go with the fact that Joe Mixon under rush yards is the play as well. Joe Mixon has not had a good season. His over rush yards prop bet is set at 67 and a half rush yards. Granted, the Browns don't have a great rush defense, but the Bengals have struggled oddly enough to run it all season. The Bengals are averaging just 87 rush yards per game, 3.5 rush yards per attempt. This is not a good rush attack from the Bengals, and I don't think Joe Mixon is going to, quote unquote, get right here tonight. He's gone over this number just once this season. So if we're talking about value, it's not in his rushing prop. If you want to bet on Joe Mixon, something like that, maybe target his receiving yards prop, which is at 22 and a half pass receiving yards. He's gone over that a few more times this season. There's a little bit more value in that player prop, but his rushing yards prop, I personally just see zero value in that. I think he's going to go under. So if you want to make that bet, by all means. But if you want to bet him on the over, life's too short to bet the under, whatever it may be, I don't think this is the prop you want to target. There's a stronger chance that he goes under. And if you're looking for value on that, there's not a lot of value in this prop, but it's in the under if there is any at all. And that brings us to our final prop. And I don't typically do point totals, but I'm feeling really strong about this one. It's a first half point total. Both of these teams not terrible on the script, which means first quarter they might get, 7, 14 points combined. And the total points for the first half is set at 22 and a half. That seems oddly low for two teams that average roughly 13 points per first half so far this season. So combined, they're averaging 26 points per first half average. And the total points is set below that, which makes me take a little bit of a second and I think what's Vegas know that I don't. But at the same time, if we even then look at the last three, because maybe that's inflated based off of a few games as of late, over the last three, Cincinnati has 17.3 first half points. And if we scroll down to Cleveland, their last three, they're averaging 12.3. So on average, as of late, over the last 3 games, they've combined for 29 first half points. That's why I think the play for total points, 22 and a half first half points, is going to be the over on this one. I think both teams come out with solid scripts. I think they both score about 14 points in the first quarter, 14 to 17 points in the first quarter. Then all you really need is one more touchdown if they get that 17-point kind of cushion. And I think they're going to hit that. This is a Bengals team that has looked really, really solid. And despite starting 0-2, they're now sitting at, 4-3 on the season, but all three of their losses have been very winnable games. And Cleveland, they're regressing a little bit, but I mean, all of our data, all of our simulations think that the Browns have what it takes in them to pull off the potential upset at home. They also think it'll be a closer game. So if it's a close game, I think both teams will hit heads. And I think the first half will be higher scoring than the second half. Total is set at 45, and I think 22 and a half of those will be scored in the first half. So before we get up on out of here, let's break down today's best bets from DRF Daily on this Halloween. Bengals -3 against the Browns. All historical trends are going against the Browns. I think the Bengals have what it takes to pull out this dub. Now, breaking down the player props, Joe Burrow has been an absolute man on fire this year. Over 263 and a half pass yards is the play. He's gone over that 5 of the 7 games so far this season. He's coming off of a 400-yard performance. And this is a Browns defense that just allows teams to carve them up. A seventh most passing yards per attempt allowed so far this season. And Joe Burrow is going to take every advantage of that with his slew of fantastic wide receivers and even Joe Mixon out of the backfield. But Joe Mixon getting the ball on handoff and rushing attempts, he's going to go under 67.5 rush yards. If you want to bet a Joe Mixon over, I think his receiving yards prop is something to target. But then again, I think the best bet for Joe Mixon tonight is under 67.5 pass yards. A Bengals team that is not great at running the football, even though they have a top 10 run block win rate. They just are unable to get things going for Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine in the backfield for the Bengals. And last but not least, total first half points over 22.5. If we're talking season averages, these two teams combined for 26 points per first half. If we're talking last 3 games for both of these teams, they average 29 combined first half points. So I think this over is all but a lock. And we're feeling a solid Monday Night Football. We're 7-1 over our last 8 bets. Feeling good about it. Last time out was our Saturday DRF Daily. We hit 3-1. We're currently 4 games over 500 in football.